on the Mifflin squad, we on the rise. Dynasty Football League, no surprise. I'm drafting like Michael, got the strategizing, making moves like Jim, ain't no compromising. Got Creed as my flex, he's a mystery man, running through the field like a part of the plan. Pam and Jim stack up points like it's nothing. Call me Dwight Schrute, undefeated stun. They see commissioner like Michael Sky, making sure the rules tight, no funny business plot. Got Oscar in my lineup, he's the analyst, analyzing matchups, predicting all the twists.
Back here, Office Dynasty League podcast. Matt Jordan joined by the owner of the Zits as we kick off our team interview, team breakdowns, and a former champion gets us started off. Just not the former champion that some people thought we were going to get, but Mac doesn't pay attention during the offseason, so we'll get another former champion in as Dallas Harris joins us. Dallas, thanks for taking some time to sit down with me.
Absolutely, man. When your text came through, it was actually kind of funny. I was like, oh yeah, we are starting to clean back up, because when you sent the link out to that first episode, I listened to about half of it, and I got sidetracked. And you sent that text out. I was like, man, maybe I should get caught up again. So I was able to listen to the back half of that pod and get ready for today. And I'm looking forward to just digging into some things and talking about, what I can say is one of, if not the most fun fantasy league that I'm a part of.
Yeah, it's coming up. What is this year 5, year 6, which is crazy to think. Yeah, we're heading into year 5. That's crazy to think about.
It's gone by quick, and it's funny to look back. I don't think now that, and we'll talk about this, now that T's gone, I don't know that I have a single player on my roster that I drafted. And it's just crazy how leagues change and rosters change, and not only that, but then the non-fantasy football things that come about, and just bring these people together. And I'm connected to some guys that I don't know that I would be otherwise, and I'm super thankful for it.
Yeah, that is a cool aspect of this, and to think like there's 10 guys in this group, and I want to say like 8 or 9 states that are represented when you look at the 10 different people. I think Adrian and John are the only two that, well, now John's not even in Ohio, so I think it's John and Mac that are the only two that share a state.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fantasy football. The one of the glues that holds some groups of guys,
Yep.
and groups of everyone together, and it's super fun to be a part of.
Yeah. So looking at, you mentioned T. Higgins being gone. I haven't had anyone on my initial roster for a while. So the fact that you held on to T. Higgins as long as you did is impressive. But looking at this trade, so talk me through the thought process, giving up T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Dakota Rain Prescott, and then a second-round pick, and getting Mahomes, Williams, and a first back in that trade.
Yeah, Tyler and I, we joked after he sent the infamous sirens to the group that this trade had been months in the making, and I had to apologize to him on multiple fronts. I kind of Adrian'd him on accident a couple times, and you can ask him. I sent him a couple texts. I was like, dude, I am so sorry. I did not mean to do this to you. But we went back and forth a handful of times, and finally kind of dug our heels in. And I was sitting in a really weird position with my roster where I can look at it and I can rattle off guys that are older but have been really good really recently. Mark Andrews, which he isn't old yet, but he's getting there. Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Austin Eckler. I mean, Austin Eckler, you can argue, is one of if not the reason that I have the championship that I have from 2 years ago. And it's just that situation where you look at your roster and you say, are we still good enough in comparison to the rest of the league? And then I have a guy in T. Higgins who multiple people have asked about many, many times, and his Clemson ties probably kept him a little bit higher on my list than he should have, and I'll be the first to admit that. but I had a guy who kept asking about Dak Prescott, which I thought was, interesting, and brought up Mahomes, and we kind of worked through that. And I kind of broke the trade down in my head into kind of two trades. And I thought at first is Dak Prescott and Calvin Ridley worth giving up for Patrick Mahomes and Jameson Williams? And I thought, pretty easily, yes. Calvin Ridley's been great in the past, albeit a handful of years ago. We haven't seen it super recently. He's been kind of up and down, but guess what? That's Jameson Williams for different reasons. But Jameson Williams younger and has, just as much upside as Ridley, in my opinion, and he has that youth on his side. And then you look at the obvious Patrick Mahomes of it all, the best player in football, arguably by the end of his career, the greatest of all time. So I kind of looked at it like that, and I was like, I'm good with that part of the deal. And then it came down to draft compensation. And what I mentioned earlier was kind of funny. I went back and listened to the back half of the pod that you did with Caleb, and I start listening in retrospect about what you guys are talking about with me and Tyler, what me and Tyler should do after it's already happened, and it was just funny to listen to. But then I think to myself, what can I get for T at this point? And that kind of turned into just a certain number of picks upgrade. I wanted to get my pick back, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get Adrian's, but I could get mine back, kind of control my own destiny in that way in terms of, now that I have my pick, future trade negotiations are different now because do I go full throttle? Because if I don't have my pick, it's a lot easier to make moves on the fringes and kind of just say, well, yeah, let's roll the dice here because I don't have my pick anyway. But now that's back in the fold, it's gonna impact future decisions. And I just thought, what, let's go with it. Let's get the ball rolling on what I'm going to call, to quote Kevin Pritchard in the Indiana Pacers, a retool, not a rebuild.
Yeah, so generally when I look, and it's always hard to go who won a trade, who lost a trade, I look at who got the best player or who got the best pick. And in my opinion, you got the best player in Patrick Mahomes, and you got the best pick in getting your own first back. And I think you got rid of, Calvin Ridley is fine, but I don't know if he helps your team in the position that you're in right now. And then T. Higgins, obviously a young star, but he's never really, I don't think he's ever been higher than wide receiver 18. So he's a middle to late wide receiver 2 when it comes to fantasy. He's obviously at least one more season going to be with Cincinnati. And maybe he goes and is a wide receiver 1 when he moves to another team. But I feel like you got the better player and you got the better pick, but it does hurt you in the now. I did find, so would you consider moving Mahomes, or you're like, okay, I've got my quarterback and now I can figure out what the rest of the roster is going to look like?
I'm never going to say never. It'd be very hard to trade Mahomes, just from both the fantasy and non-fantasy aspect of who he is. And the fact that he's really fun to root for and really fun to have. And also, I don't know that right off the rip that I'm going to be able to find someone who's better than him. There are trades out there, specifically years from now, that we can't even think of that would exist. So I'm never going to say never, but it does give me a little bit of confidence to say no. Mahomes is he's gonna sit in that quarterback slot for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and we'll figure out everything else. We'll tool it all around. Whoever I can go draft, whoever I can go trade for now, and it doesn't have to be that quarterback position. That's not going to be a Brock Purdy or during our draft, who I got from you, a Deshaun Watson. It's that thing's on lock, as you could say, for the time being.
So we talked about you getting your draft pick back in the draft, and one of the things you have to do, even if you're just retooling and not rebuilding, is you have to draft well. And for someone, we talked about it. We've been through 4 rookie drafts at this point, and you and Tyler, I believe, are the only 2 teams yet to make a first-round pick. And even one year, 2022, you didn't even make a draft pick, period. So what has been your strategy these last several seasons with just being like, okay, I'm going to focus on having players that play now. I'm not going to worry about draft picks. I'm going to stay competitive, and you've been competitive in each and every season. You won a championship. What's been the strategy there? And now, what are you thinking about as you pivot? Because not only do you get your first back, you also have your second, and you have 2 more seconds, mine and Will's, who could be lottery seconds, or they could be low level playoff picks.
Yeah. So it all started with our initial draft. That you guys talked about John's write-ups, and I got one of his grades was very good because my team appeared to be very ready to go win, and one of my grades was very bad because my team was very old. And so it all kind of started there. I said, let's go win now, and figure it out later. And just kind of ran with that into year 2. And then year 2, I had a bunch of injuries. Year 3 was, the crowning achievement. We made it to the mountaintop, and I rode that into the off season heading into year 4 thinking, let's keep a good thing going. And just kind of threw caution to the wind a couple times and said, if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, we gave it the good old college try. But now I'm at a point where even if I did have those assets draft-wise, I'm not sure that I could go get them from people who are not also competing and wanting to win now, and make my team as good on a weekly basis as the teams that I'd have to compete against. I don't know that I can get something from necessarily Tyler or Evan or Mac that would make me, just as good as them on any given week without having very favorable matchups. And that's the thing about the Zits right now is I think we could trot out any given Sunday, matchup, weather, a few other things, injuries, depending, and I think we could beat anybody. But then you also have the whole, I think I could walk out there, throw up 72 points, and get beat by anybody else. So it's weird to pivot from a let's push all of our chips into the center of the table type of mindset and think, let's start taking stock of what we have and look at these things more of individual assets and less of a little bit of like, what is the team trying to do here, which is win a championship. But let's say that's not going to happen this year, so let's set ourselves up for 2025 or 2026, 2027. And it's been fun because, I like Caleb said in the first pod, you're always trying to win. His goal is to make the playoffs, and that's going to be my goal as well. But it's different to have a little bit of a different scope and idea about what success could look like if it doesn't result in a championship. And I'm looking forward to it. It's fun. I'm looking forward to eventually having rookies on my roster that aren't taken pick 32nd, 35th, 41st. So it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. And it's been interesting to see the texts come in from other managers, be like, "Hey, can I get this guy? Hey, can I get this guy?" Because there's a sense of everyone realizing now that my guys are getting older, but they still have value. What can we do for them? They're not going to. The Zits aren't in the position they should be or want to be. So it's fun to take that different approach into a new year.
Yeah, you have several very movable pieces that can certainly help. I mean, if you get to a point, say, week 5, week 6, you're, 1-5 or 0-5 or, something like that. I mean, Saquon Barkley, more than likely in this new Phillies offense or this new Eagles offense, is going to be very good. And should fetch a decent offer if someone's trying to make a push and has a running back injury. If Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp show that they still have value, both very movable pieces. Mark Andrews is a movable piece. Hey, maybe Jerry Jeudy figures it out in Cleveland and becomes a piece you can move. Other than that, though, you do have. I mean, there's a little lack of depth here. There's a lot of guys that could turn out, but we still to be seen. And then of course, I mean, if you've got Adam Thielen on your team, you're always feeling good because everybody we love AT.
There will be no Adam Thielen slander tolerated from the Zits organization. I just want everyone to remember that moving into this year.
So for you, Dallas, what are your goals or maybe your expectations for the season, and at what point would you go ahead and say, all right, panic button, let's move some guys, let's add some picks. And it's funny that you and Tyler have already made a trade, because I'll go ahead and predict that I don't think you and Tyler are done. I think you make another move at some point, but it won't be until closer to the middle of the fantasy season, because you have pieces to be moved that can help a player win, and he is needing the depth. And I don't know if Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins are the answer for him. So I think that you make a move. So where are you at with that, and what do you have to be at to hit that panic button middle of the season?
Well, first on Tyler front, it's funny you say that because he texted me yesterday already about another trade that we'll see if that comes to fruition here. But I just think figuring out who, when you say you mentioned a lack of depth and a lot of young pieces that they're fighting for real life football roles, and guys like Tyrone Tracy, who you never know might be RB1 very quickly in New York, and just trying to figure out and take stock of what I have on my roster that I can carry into next season, but also being willing to use those young pieces to go get future assets that make sense. If I can use one of those to go get a pick that I feel like I really like, or can use to go get something else, or use those assets to go get a guy who's in his third or fourth year who's really coming up, or I think is in a good position. But I think moving into next season, I don't know if it depends so much upon my record in terms of, when I hit the panic button, but what these guys that are very movable look like. I, for one, am rooting for Austin Eckler to get off to the hottest start of his career. I hope by week 4, by week 5, I love Austin Eckler, always have, but I hope he's not on the Zits roster. And there's just some other things like that. If my guys are performing very well, I need to be able to look at myself and say, is this sustainable, and is riding this out going to benefit the Zits, in a month, in 6 weeks, by playoff time, and being okay with saying this is not the year, no matter how rosy it looks right now. But also being prepared for, like you said, to start 1-5, for it to start 0-5, and that be okay. And go say, let's use these pieces while we can to go get what we can. I just know that I don't want to rush the trade negotiations selfishly, so I can try to bleed everything out of it that I can to get every asset that I can, but also not be too stingy to the point where I'm missing out on a trade that I actually do like because the fringes aren't where I want it to be. I honestly don't know when that time is going to be. It might be week 1. It might be week 12. I couldn't tell you. But I'm excited for this season because, like we touched on, it's going to be so different for me when it comes to how I've approached this specific league in the past. And I'm looking forward to it. I think if the panic button gets hit week 1, let her ride, smack it hard. If it's week 12, then let's go, hit it even harder. So we'll see. Honestly, couldn't tell you, but I'm excited about it.
Well, you mentioned week 1. Week 1, you take on your good buddy Ethan. Little Zits versus meat action. Battle of two former champions that aren't Mac, essentially. So how do you feel about that, taking on Ethan week 1?
I'm really looking forward to it because Ethan and I are also in another Dynasty League together, and we also play each other week 1. So we're going to see who gets the upper hand there. Ethan has a couple guys on his roster that I've been trying to get my hands on for a while now, and he's definitely got a beloved Indianapolis Colt on his roster as well. So rooting against my real-life team, but rooting for my fantasy team is always a little painstaking. But I'm looking forward to it. The meet, they aren't what they used to be when we think back to their illustrious championship run. But I'm looking forward to going to battle with Ethan. Him and I are great buddies. We have been since we were, 11, 12 years old, and anytime I get to butt heads with him over something like fantasy football and give me an extra excuse to text him a couple times throughout the week, give him a call and give him some crap, I always look forward to it, and it's going to be fun. Week one sets the tone, and I'm really looking forward to going up against Ethan in the meet.
All right. Well, I'll leave us with the episode, and I'll leave you with this as we get closer and closer here in June. I think September will be here before we know it. We'll be playing. But I happen to have a pretty beloved Colt on my team that I think a lot of Colts fans hope is the future, that I definitely would consider moving if we were talking Patrick Mahomes and something else along the way. So just know that I could be reaching out if you want to get younger and also pick yourself up a future Colt.
Give me a holler. I'm always in the market to trade for Sam Ellinger.
Okay, all right. I'll pick him up and I'll add him to the team. So.
Absolutely, sir.
All right. Well, Dallas, appreciate you sitting down with me, and good luck the rest of the off season. Good luck in any trade negotiations you have, and good luck when we get to the season.
Andy, sir, I appreciate you having me. I always look forward to doing this type of stuff. It's a blast, and look forward to the next time we can sit down and talk, and I look forward to all the episodes coming our way soon.
I'm going to look real quick. I'm going to see what week are we going to match up with each other. I think we only play once this season, and I'm in week 5. It's still not there, so it could be deep into the season before
I've got week 9.
Week 9. All right. Well, I look forward to
sprinkles.
Looking forward to popping a zit week 9.
All right. I'm looking forward to it, buddy.